Hello and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to talk about their impact and relevance today. I'm Tim Longo Jr., and I'm joined, as always, by a man who is the only one on his block with a retinal scanner on his front door.
Brett Eyeball. No, Brett Duville. Brett Duville.
Brett
Yes.
Eyeball. Eyeville.
I don't. I was
something. I didn't get there.
It's not really. It's hard to get there. We're weak.
Everyone knows that Duville in French means eyeball, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly.
But unfortunately, Brett didn't quite get to that section, so you didn't really get the joke. But you did see the door with.
I saw the retinal scanner. Yes, I did see the retinal scanner.
My favorite moment of this session was related to the eye, so I won't spoil it for you, but you'll remember it when you see it. It's pretty.
I will.
It's pretty hilarious.
That's been the funny part about this game is how frequently I get to a section and I go, "Oh yeah," or "Oh, I forgot this was this early." Whereas if you had asked me before we started playing what's in this game, I'd be like, "There's a little kid in a suit, and there's this weird village, and there's these things that come out of people's heads, and like." That might have been about it, honestly. Oh, and the thing in the lake. The thing in the lake, for sure, I would remember.
The lake's pretty memorable, yeah. I think El Gigante is pretty memorable, too. But
I do.
I didn't remember him being this early. But then I guess he kind of becomes a repeating thing. So
yeah. I want to first, before we dive into our topics, I want to read an email again like we did last time. I think this is something we should start incorporating, just like questions we have about, for games, because often I think we come off as more authorities than we mean to come off as. We're digging into these games, but we don't know everything about them. We've definitely,
or some of them we haven't played for a long time, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's like to really get all the way through it, it'd be like, well, you'd have to play it 5-6 times and really kind of push the systems in different directions to know what happens. Anyway, this is our question. Last time we asked whether the guns, if you resell them, they come back at a higher value if you've added to them, if you've upgraded them. Yeah. This is again from Zachary, who answered the question last week as well. So I think Zachary's a real RE4 expert. He says, I'm back. In episode 2, you guys posited the question of upgraded guns and their sellback worth. Upgraded guns do sell for more. Typically, you should only be upgrading one gun of each type, so you get the best bang for your buck and sell back the ones you aren't upgrading. Tip for Tim in relation to aiming issues. Red 9 with the stock all the way. That might be good for me as well. Thanks again for covering the game. You guys rock. Thank you. So we have another question too. Yeah, the Red 9. I'm not sure what that is, but I saw that in the stock,
it's like a Luger looking thing.
Oh, cool. Okay. Maybe that's what I'll need for the
pistol.
Okay. So the question we had is that you got the end of 2-2 or 2-3, and it said you had killed like 20 or something.
No, 14 out of 142 enemies.
Right.
And I'm like, what? I didn't skip that much.
Our question and our suspicion is that you could recover basically the whole map and redo the canyon, and like that there might be effectively respawns everywhere, but we don't actually know. So we thought we would ask that question out to the audience of like, sometimes the number of enemies seems wildly off. I mean, is it possible just to like draw the siege out longer, or like whatever, I don't know which chapter it corresponds to, but is there something like that where there's to get all the things in the game, or even just all the money and everything, or the expected money, you would have to actually keep recovering everywhere you could reach on the map, I guess is really the question.
The same thing happened to me on the stats for 2-3 as well. It was not as wide a gap, but it was like double digits, triple digits separated. And like I'm really interested in this answer because if I think of like a speedrunner doing 100%,
Yeah.
speed run. It's like
Yeah.
you probably have to you have to know the triggers, because like if you do take the siege as an example, there's probably some scripting logic trigger for when that ends. And like if it's sort of forced, like we talked about with the chainsaw guy in the beginning, it's like he doesn't come unless you can choose to get the shotgun or not in that section. Or like I did, I got the shotgun the second time through. So
Right.
it doesn't trigger then. So it's like, it'd be interesting, you have to memorize basically the scripting triggers to make sure you get all the enemies, if that's how it works. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I was looking to see if there was it looks like on the PS4 Pro, the speed run, I assume this isn't any thing, is an hour and 35 minutes on new game.
Wow. But that's not 100%.
I don't
probably
think so, but I don't know.
There's no way.
I don't know how, there's no way. I don't know how, I mean, and there's other things that are, I'm sure, yeah, but I don't know how to search these things, so I'm sure somebody will know that what an any percent or versus 100%, where to find that data is. I am so naive when it comes to speed runs. Anyway, thanks again, Zach. If I may call you Zach, I'm going to find out that I shouldn't call him Zach next time. Let's move on to the sections we played. A lot of different things that we did here. The big one, I think, for me, is El Gigante. And part of why that's such a big deal to me is, again, it's a really big, impressive set piece. Pretty early in the game, it's like, we had I guess the siege maybe comes before it. Is that true?
No, the first one.
The first one comes before. Okay.
Yeah, the first one comes before,
and then the siege. Yeah, after that, and then there's a possibility of a second one. And I do remember being kind of like, oh my god, like how much crazier are these things gonna get? It's just like, playing it again here. The like chainsaw enemies don't seem like as big a deal, although the ones in the path that you took can be quite tricky.
I died 4 times there.
I was gonna say that was rough for me. That was where I was doing that as extras for me, partly why I didn't finish. But I do remember being like, whoa, are you kidding me? Just like, look at this thing. And then this time I knew kind of how the thing worked and what you had to do. So the first time I didn't really know what was happening. I thought it was just kind of defeat it with damage. I didn't try to get near it when it was down, and so I didn't know I was going to jump up on his back and like stab the thing coming out of its neck / back.
Oh, I didn't even do that.
You didn't?
No, I just shot the thing.
Kill it with straight up damage? Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, I shot when he still went down, but I was shooting the thing out of his back.
Oh, okay. There's a animation. If you run up, you can press the awesome action button, and it'll run up and jump onto its back, and then you can mash a button, whatever, and be stabbing the knife into it.
Okay, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I mean, it's probably 3 times either way, I would expect, like as long as you're doing enough damage to that thing. But maybe not. What was your experience with actually taking it down? Was it like 3 downs and 3 shooting the thing on its back?
I'm going to say maybe twice.
Okay. So maybe it's faster to twice, do it that way. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's interesting.
But again, we're
the trade-off.
Pretty it's a trade-off, but we're pretty sure that the 2 versions we're playing are tuned differently. Because I like, again, even in the QTEs that happened during that fight are still, I think I missed some of them, but they feel pretty forgiving. Yeah. Is there something too, like if you get hit and you take full damage, the other thing that I feel like has happened to me a few times where I go all the way to 0, but I don't, if it happens in one hit of some kind that I don't die, I just have 0 health. And it's almost like they give you a gimme.
An extra, a little extra.
It's like, okay, yeah, you would have died there, so we're just going to put you at 0 and then see if you can recover yourself by, so I don't know if that's like a handicap or what, but I can
don't
see
know.
that.
See, I haven't seen that in my game either. So I suspect there are some quality of life improvements in the remakes and stuff that make this stuff a little bit easier. Definitely with the tram in particular, which we'll get to in a short while, I remembered when I got to it, I was like, oh no. I mean, I just had a moment of like, oh shoot, I remember this. Like as soon as I got on it, and there's this like synced animation of them stepping onto a moving tram. And I was like, oh no, I forgot about this. And just had a moment of terror. Whereas like El Gigante having, as soon as I saw him, I was like, okay, all right, this is a guy where you just, shoot him a bunch and, it's fine to use. I use some grenades there and stuff too. It's like, you just want to do enough damage to him that you can jump on his back and stab him a bunch with that thing coming out of him. So I kind of remembered that as soon as I saw him. I was like, oh, I forgot he was this early, but yeah, there's just, I mean, I do really appreciate them throwing out big swings really, really early in the game, I think is my big takeaway.
Yeah, it's a little God of War-y, right? Like what was the timing? When did God of War?
Same year.
Same year. Interesting. Okay.
2005, right? Yeah, same year.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's good. Yeah, and it's impressive. I think it's shot really well camera-wise. And, the other cool thing that I forgot to mention last session was you walk through this area on your way to the lake, right? And this arena, and you actually hear the growling from, I don't know if you remember that, but you hear him growling. And so there's some good foreshadowing on your way back. And then even the introduction scene of him where he takes down all those dudes, is a great entrance, right? And then Leon does a freaking flip around like in his flippy way and and is like, oh, it has probably some quip that I'm forgetting. He says something there, which is hilarious. And then the dog, right? The dog. Yeah. If you save the dog earlier, right? That from the trap, which by the way is a foreshadowing that there are traps in the game. True. And become a pretty prominent thing.
Yeah, I had Ashley step into one of those. That was fun.
Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't think she could do that.
I don't love that. I do not love
they want you to trigger each one or something, which I guess I got lucky.
I mean, I when I first passed through, it was fine, and she avoided them all. But when I came back, I went back to that area because I was scouting for a green herb because I had a yellow herb and I was having trouble with the tram. So I was trying to find some way to make myself more resilient for the tram. And so I was backtracking a little bit. And we went in there and she totally got stuck in the same trap twice. I was like, are you kidding me? Now you're half
I guess
health.
You could have her stay still.
I had, but when I came back, she was in the trap. I was like, oh, are you kidding me?
Ashley. It's so funny too because it's such a. Let's see, what year was Eco?
2001.
Yeah, 1. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, 1 and 6, 1 and 5.
Yeah, I wonder if that was. I wonder what the lineage is there because such a different companion game. Anyway, yes, we could go a long, deep road on companions, but. I lucked out. She didn't step in any traps for me. So,
I almost did. And unfortunately the AIs, I don't know if they can't, but they don't. Even if you kind of like maneuver yourself so that they're between, that there's a trap between you and them.
Yeah, right. You can't use it against them, which would have been.
I don't think they'll
cool.
set it off. I think they just run right through it. Sadly, it would have been neat to be able to do that. I tried to do it in the village where they first appeared. They're very hard to see as well. So.
Yeah, part of the art direction. Yeah, the brownness of it. What would be cool is if you triggered one and then you could take it and then you could use it.
Use it
put it wherever you wanted. Yeah, that would be cool.
They look pretty heavy. You'd have to.
But look at how much you're carrying already.
Yeah, right.
So then we finally
realism, Tim. Realism. You can't also carry all that and a bear trap.
Yeah, exactly. That's fair enough. Yeah, so then we get to the church finally, basically, right? And that's when you find Ashley and you start the companion gameplay of the game, which is one of its sort of signature things that obviously happens. I think actually happens at a pretty good spot in the game overall. I think they give you a good amount of time by yourself to learn things. So the pacing, I just think it's a very well, at least the village section up to chapter 3, which we just. Sorry, 3, which I just started. That whole up to 2-3, at the end of 2-3, is just really well paced game, well balanced, well paced, well tuned, like uncannily so. I don't know if it's just the version I'm playing or what, but it's like I'm surprised because I feel like in general the phrase that we've used before in the past that I didn't expect to come into my head for a Resident Evil game, especially a survival horror game, is it's a pretty low friction game for me this time. Like I guess that's not the case for you. So maybe it's just the way that the remaster is tuned, but it's like, I definitely have challenges, and I died 4 times in that one section, leading to the gondola section or the trams, that I'll talk about later. But so there's definitely challenge there, but it just, smooth playing.
Yeah.
So
I do remember being, back in the day, being surprised that there was a sort of systemic companion like this. I was not expecting that. I sort of felt like, she's the MacGuffin we'll get to basically at the end of the game. And it's interesting that she comes in so early, that you rescue her from the church, which, by the way, the map does you no favors in there. I'm like, it says there's a door here, but you have to go the opposite side of the room and go up a ladder and jump across this thing and unlock. We can talk about.
I didn't even look at the map. I just.
Well, I got into the church and I went into the area where the ladder was, and I just didn't see it. Like, I just missed it visually. Like, my eye didn't catch it, and so I went out and I was looking around the altar, and then I went to the other alcove where the door would be shown, and then I'm like, well, it's weird. I don't see any way to progress, and I'm like, I kept trying to examine things, but there was no. I'm like, weird. So then I popped up in the map. I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe there's a secret door over here, and I just banged my head against it because there's
it doesn't
door
do good
here
at levels. Yeah.
So,
elevation.
One
one small thing that's a quality of life thing that I think is pretty clever in that room. If you go to basically to the front of it in the altar or whatever, or the podium, and you turn back and you look at the back of the room, you see the lenses for the 3 lights, the red, green, and blue lights. And my immediate instinct was to shoot them, of course, because that's what you do. Right. But when you put your cursor up there, the red dot at the end of the laser sight does not show up like it does on
you can't
enemies, or you can't target it basically. So it's actually a pretty clever little, like, that's not a tangible thing, so you can't really, you know what I mean? Like, when I didn't see the dot, I was like, okay, I'm not supposed to shoot these.
Yeah.
So
there's no white light that all the treasures have, basically, of that you shoot down.
Yeah, exactly. It's not gleaming. Yeah, it's not gleaming. Yeah. So anyway, so it's a small thing, but it kind of didn't occur to me that that kind of shows you both range, but also, like, is it something that I could even shoot? So then it kind of dawned on me, is like, okay, that's not part of the puzzle. But that was a cool, I mean, the light puzzle that we did skip over the fake buoyancy crate puzzle at the waterfall area. Both of these, and I feel like there's another one, some that I'm blanking on that are, I think at least they're trying a little harder in this one versus 1, 2, and 3. I mean, again, I haven't played 3, but they're just a little bit more motivated, a little bit more grounded as far as puzzles go, which I like.
Yeah, there was the one behind the church as well, which is like you have to it specifically
the
mentions
gravestones.
twins, and like, and you realize you have to somehow light up the symbols that are in the twins' gravestones, and like it doesn't make a lot of sense why that would be there.
That one's optional though, right?
That's optional. It's purely for a treasure. Yeah. So
that one's more abstract. Yeah, that one's
one's a little more abstract, but it's also like there's a little word puzzle in it, sort of, and you got to kind of understand, like you got to kind of understand what it's getting at, which I do appreciate, even if it's abstract. I do appreciate that kind of motivation of like, I mean, it's not very effective as a deterrent for theft to leave a bunch of clues around in the nearby graveyard, but it's still fun to do. So I liked it. It had a very escape room kind of feel.
Yeah.
So
yeah, totally.
Put things in the environment so you can puzzle them out, and I never say no to that sort of thing. So that was pretty good. We should also talk about the cabin siege, which again, a thing that, I mean, when I was in it, I was like, "Oh yeah, like this was a good section." It's very, very zombie movie, even though these are not zombies, but they're not zombies at this point, because they also, like, the story is, before we kind of talk about the siege itself, the story is sort of interweaving the fact that you've been injected with this, let's just say, pathogen. I don't know if they refer to it as a virus or not. The Las Plages. I think they call it a virus, but it's basically a critter that they've injected into you that grows into a much bigger critter, alien style, and instead bursts out through your neck. So if you're headshotting guys at this point, their heads are popping, and these, huge tentacle things are whipping out, which I remember being properly terrifying the first time I saw it.
Yeah, that was like an upping the ante. For sure.
And they can attack, it's not just from a long distance too. So it's like, they're gameplay wise, they're also kind of terrifying, because they're, they really, they mechanically substantially, at that point, the zombies are really zombies. Like, they're not moving very fast. They won't run like that at you. But they don't have to get very far before they're close enough, so you're like, I got to really focus on this one now, because, it's deployed its whatever that thing is. So,
yeah, and it's not just, I mean, if they take a certain amount of health damage, they'll pop too. I don't think it's just if you're hitting them in the head.
Right. They'll fall down even and just emerge while they're on the ground and stuff. Yeah.
And if you die and restart a section, it seems random to which ones are going to have head pops from that critter too. So you could luck out sometimes and not have them, but it does make it terrifying. Yeah, because you're not sure which ones are going to do it. They have
a good intro too, where it's like a single one of them walking down a path at you. There's another dude there, but it explicitly they have a cutscene to introduce it, and it's really dark in there too. So it's like it's coming, and like, because of the way the thing moves, it's kind of moving in and out of the light besides. So it makes it even scarier in that moment. A very constrained environment, like it's basically a hallway, even though it's outdoors. But they can have it kind of going in and out of the light, which is
cool. Their enemy introductions have been excellent as generally so far. I'd say So it's the progression of enemies, and kind of, again, the pacing and balancing of those introductions has been quite good. But the siege scene is very Night of the Living Dead feeling, and you can it's using. Like, even though it's not a highly systemic game, they are reusing gameplay objects in very clever ways, time and time again. Ladders being one of my favorite ones, but which is actually used in this sequence as well. But then you can move bookcases in front of the windows to kind of buy yourself some more time as they're breaking through, the wooded up windows, and then. I guess Ashley goes and hides in an armoire upstairs or something.
She just sort of disappears. Yeah.
And
then you don't have to worry about her. I mean, I think that's probably just AI. Like, let's not worry about her, because we already have Luis, who's got a duck. He'll duck under, if you point in a direction and he's in that direction, he'll duck. And it would be
Oh, that's
difficult to
true.
have
Yeah, using two
three
AI
NPCs in that
yeah.
space, so it would be even just moving around, to kind of thread the needle between multiple characters would be frustrating. So it was neat. It was neat to see that, and you felt like you were working with this guy, this other as sort of law enforcement guy figure, or former law enforcement, I think in his case, but it was neat. And of course, then he just leaves again. You're like, oh, okay, see you later.
Yeah, he's fickle. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
just like fearless and fickle, for whatever. But yeah, but one thing I do want to call out is that this is the scene where I did remember the damsel, the damsel situation here, and in fact, you wouldn't have gotten it, but I almost don't even want to give them any airtime, but the achievement you get when you save her,
oh boy,
is called Secure the Ballistics.
No.
Yeah, that's the achievement.
No.
That's the
God.
the programmed in achievement for rescuing her originally. Secure the ballistics, and that's referring to a line that Luis says in the scene.
Yeah.
And it's just the worst.
It's pretty bad.
So anyway, we got to call that out because they just don't obviously handle Ashley well at all.
I mean, I love that she gives back on that, but
yeah, I mean, it's something, but it's
not great. It's not great.
Yeah. But anyway,
I mean, he even knows. He even knows he's there for the president's daughter. I think at that point, like, I mean, come on. Jesus.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And she seems quite a bit younger than them, I mean,
True.
So it's like it's also
like even,
weird from that.
Yeah. Sick on all kinds of levels.
But despite that, the siege is definitely memorable, very good. Like even coming down to the level itself, and you see this big house, and it's just
it makes you feel like you're making the same dumb mistakes that you yell at the screen in every zombie movie. It's because it's so frenetic. There's so many avenues they could be coming in. I didn't cover any of the doors and windows, and then afterwards I'm like, oh, you know what? I should have probably pushed some of those bookcases in front of these windows and stuff. It
helps, yeah. And then the ladders too, because they put ladders that go up to the top windows, and you can knock those ladders down.
Right. Which I did a lot of in subsequently, but I did not do a lot of there. In that next section, the section that you took in the fork, I was knocking down ladders, frequently.
Yeah,
being like, okay, cool. No, this is how.
Those are great. That section, that's probably my favorite section so far. Is that next that fork where you fight all of the zombies? Yeah, and the two chainsaw women come out. And that section, did we want to move off of the siege? I guess we're good.
Yeah, we can move it. There's not a lot more there. I mean, you basically are there, you right after that is when you're making a decision to go left or right. And I guess there was some clue about which was going to be which in the document that you get there. I totally whiffed on it. Like, I had no idea. I'm like, well, I looked at the two sections of map in my map and was like, well, this is narrow. It probably won't be the Gigante. I'll go see what it's like to be in there. And I'm going into there. That's actually where I lost Ashley, because I told her to wait near the entrance.
Yeah.
And it turns out that you trigger the thing by going the other way, and it jumps down basically in between. So it just jumped down and ate her. It just jumped down. And I mean, he picked her up the time I beat him. He did pick her up, and I basically shot his hand, which was
neat.
really cool. It was a cool moment of like, I pulled up on the stick and I shot, didn't hit her and hit his hand, and he dropped her. And then I was, pumping lead into his face, and he fell on his knee, and she got behind me and stuff like that. So all of that was really cool. But it was also just like, oh no, what have I done? I was just doing that to like protect her, because I didn't know. I assumed I was going to see a bunch of enemies. I didn't want her absorbing damage, and I didn't remember that because I had not done the Gigante fight in the past, and so I just didn't remember that the other section was where the chainsaw women were. So I was like, as soon as I went there, I was like, oh, that's why I didn't remember that fight, because I did this other one, and I put her in the the dumpsters or whatever where she can hide. Can hide her. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I forgot about that. That
Yeah,
I had
that's
done that.
yeah, they have we should talk about that for a second because they have so there's the dumpsters that she can hide in. Um, she can follow you. You can tell her to stay put. When you fire, when you basically pull the trigger to aim, if she's nearby, she will kind of stick to your back, so she's like always behind you. I'm just kind of rattling off some of the things that can happen. She can obviously take damage from traps, but the zombies will also pick her up and put
Right.
in if they get close to her, so you can take them down, and so they'll drop her. You can heal her, like she has her own health, but you can use the same resources to heal her. She will not climb down ladders or jump down. You have to catch her. So there's like these, one-way ticket kind of things. And then if the ladder's not there, she can't climb up. So you got to go put the ladder up for her. And so there's actually quite a few verbs and things that you can do with her as a companion character, which is
reinforcing, her mechanical value as well. Of like, I mean, narratively and mechanically, she's in mechanical loss condition, but she's also narratively what you're here for, right? And so she's important. She's to be protected, etc. Yeah. Damsel questions aside, mechanically speaking, it's those things are all working together, and those acts of like, she is not the professional, whatever that you are. Of course, your name's Leon. She's not what you are, and so she needs help, right? And so it's cool. It's neat.
Yeah.
It also
there's a lot more going on.
Well, there's also, it reinforces the distance between the character you're playing and who you probably are as a player. Like in life, I'm probably more Ashley than Leon, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
In that situation, be like, oh, look, a guy who knows how to use a gun. Please, I'll stand behind you.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, so it's surprising. I think for me at least, I didn't remember how deep that the companion options choices that you had to make there. So there's and I'm hoping that as you go deeper into the game that they ask you to utilize more of them, sort of tactically.
Well, it's also nice that all those elements are present before she is. Like in the farm area, there is a dumpster or whatever that you kind of just walk by and you can't interact with it, but it's there, and then the ladders are there, of course, as well. And you can knock them down, and you can raise them back up and stuff. So mechanically, that stuff is just there, and you've seen it. You've been introduced to it, as you pointed out. Like you have this time when you're solo, but you've already seen the elements that are going to be part of those interactions. So that's also kind of neat.
Yeah. And they're good. Like again, so to talk about this section that the left fork that I did, that you started doing, because you were doing both of them. That room, I'll call it a room, but like that little area, that little canyon, probably my favorite. I mean, there are lots of good ones. I think the original village is quite good too, the very first village section. But this one I liked a lot. I died, I think, 4 times or so in that section because of the the chainsaw. The chainsaws there, but the level design is very good and clever, even though it's a small space. Like they really, I always love. I think I probably said this on other series that we've done, but I really love really economically used spaces like that where it's multi-level, but there's sort of there's some cyclical paths there up at the top where you can run in a circle around the catwalks, but then there's certain lower areas that you can jump down or climb down. And then one of those triggers the chainsaws to come out, etc. But if you know the space pretty well, you can actually really manipulate the AI in very clever ways by bottlenecking them and then kicking. So the way that I ended up, and because the ladders are so cool, it's like, because it is this like, sort of a gameplay object where it changes the landscape quite a bit by knocking a ladder down. And so what I ended up doing is actually and they're also very cleverly placed jump down points as well in that, so where there's no railing. And so what I ended up doing is triggering the chainsaws to come out, climbing back up, knocking one of the two ladders in that little arena that they come in. So they had to go up one. Or I might have even knocked both of them down to give me more time, because they will put the ladders up themselves.
Right.
And then running all the way around and then running back to the beginning, knowing that they'll jump off of the catwalk down to the beginning, and then running past them, knowing that they can't get up but for that one ladder, and then just knocking that ladder down, keep knocking that ladder down as they're climbing up, and then just raining damage on them, and none of them could touch me. And it was just, that was the fourth try, but it just felt like I made a plan. The level, accommodated my plan. The gameplay objects were empowering me to think cleverly about how to do it. And then I executed on it, and then I did it. And just super. And then I go to the arena where you met them originally, and everyone's dead, because I've already killed them all and trained them, to that section. So this is it's a very small section, but it's just, I probably spent half hour, in that one section, that one little room area.
Right.
And that's really, I don't know. I just appreciate
that is maximizing a space, right?
Yeah.
And all those systems come together in that way that you can get that much play out of, 150 feet of traversable space or whatever it is. It's not a lot, and it's probably a few hundred feet or something like that. But it's not a lot of space. Now, the one question I had, because I didn't finish that section, I had just kind of gone back when I was walking around in there to check it out. I did get killed and was like, okay, I'm done for the day. My question was, do you have to go down there?
What do you mean down where? Down
into the oval where the two ladders are. Is there a reason you have to go down there, or is it just that there's tantalizing barrels? No. You have there is a door. Path. Yeah, okay, there's a door down there that you have to go to progress forward, and one of the chainsaw ladies has the key to that door on her. Oh, besides, okay.
So you have to kill.
You have to
kill at least her. The other one has a ruby. That at least that's what I got from her. That was like 10,000, so it was worth quite a bit. Oh, and by the way, there is also a secret in that section. So there's a treasure there, which is actually it was a stumper for me for a bit of like how to get there, because I won't spoil it, but there's a pretty clever. So it's not only a great combat space, multiple options.
I went down there because I knew there was a secret in the area somewhere. And I was like, oh, look at all these barrels. Well, maybe it's down there. And,
And then, the rest is history.
And then I died shortly. I did the same thing. I went up the ladder and kicked it away. But there was a guy up there, I think, who had spawned in with all the rest of them. And so I
there's lots of other ones. Yeah, for sure.
So I just ended up getting cornered. Yeah, for sure. And I was like, oh, okay. Poor Ashley's they'll find her in that dumpster eventually.
Was there anything about the El Gigante
so the only thing
battle that was interesting about the area?
Interesting was that they clearly signal that there is a and maybe this will be a good camera discussion. They clearly signal that there's a rock, the support for which you should shoot and drop the rock on him. Like they clearly communicate that in the introduction of him. I think Ashley points it out or something, and it's like, clearly this is what you're supposed to do. But because of where I am when that happens, and then the transitions and where they place Leon, and now the camera's 180 basically, because now I'm looking back to where I came in, I was totally lost as to where that thing was. And so I'm like putting my gun up in the air, but I've got this gigantic thing coming at me. And I'm like, well, so it feels like they want me to have a big moment there of like, I just shoot this thing and it drops a rock on it, it just dies, and it's almost comic. And I couldn't execute it. Because I was so paranoid about the thing coming after me. Well, and of course it ate Ashley besides. So it feels like there's a lot going on there. They want you to have the moment, but they can't quite get you to having the moment because of the order in which they do things.
Yeah.
If they had moved me, placed me, and then shown me where it was from my new vantage point, looking in my new location, or looking in my new direction, I felt like I would have had a much better sense of which side it was on. Even I feel like the side flipped, and with that thing there's just too much going on for me to feel comfortable executing the clear plan that they want me to have. Or it seems clear. Maybe it's a joke. Maybe you shoot it and nothing happens. Like, you know, I don't know, because I didn't manage it. That was really the only thing. It is a narrow passageway, so it is just like it's right there, and I'm shooting it with shotgun blasts, and then I'm jumping up and doing the knife thing. I mean, it plays out the same way. I did have the moment where Ashley got picked up, and I shot the hand, and it dropped her, and that was really cool. So those are the things that I think were neat, but I missed out on the kind of big moment.
Yeah, the kind of set piece aspect of it. That made that level design unique. Yeah, it sounds like. Yeah, I think that's part of. Yeah, I mean, it is a segue to the camera, because the reason I wanted to bring the camera up is when you fight him the first time, which you probably noticed, they changed the FOV and they changed the camera angle from the default, because he is obviously taller, and you're
right.
and so
the camera down.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, you can see why they would do that, but it's I made note of it because it's a pretty tricky decision to do that, because you're changing the default view, like as opposed to the lake monster, where you're basically just in another mode, right? You're like in a boat, and they give you a boss battle that's very scripted, or not scripted, but very specific. Your mobility's change or whatever. And here, when you fight him, he's kind of just another enemy. He's just a very tall enemy. And so for me, it's discombobulating in that it's better to hit him, because they do all those camera changes, but it's harder to kind of see where you're going, because the camera's lower and thus aimed upwards. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a tricky, and maybe that's a little bit of what happened with you in The Rock. And also, the fact that it's tank controls game is going to always make directionality hard, because it's like you can't really like turn on a drop of a dime. Like, I mean, you can with the turnaround, but then that can be discombobulating. I don't know. Yeah. If it were free look, then I think you probably have better relativity. But anyway, it felt the
same thing. Yeah, I mean, it makes some of the spaces feel really tight too. I mean, they are tight. Like if you run behind the cabins, and he'll destroy them and stuff. He'll pick up the trees and swing them around. You have to and all of that is accentuated really well by that camera change, but it is working against exactly the thing that you do the most, which is move around. It's changed that in a pretty challenging way. And it. That's like you said, it's a difficult choice to make.
It'd be interesting how they
this time the thing didn't kill me at all, right? So I guess it worked this time for me, but the first time I definitely had a lot of trouble with it back in 2005.
Well, the other thing that boss fight persona or amplified for me is the how close in the default camera actually is, because once you're done with that battle, it goes back to the default, and like the FOVs really like it's a claustrophobic game in a good way for sure, but and
really working within the performance of the systems at the time, right? Of course, narrower the FOV is, the less stuff you have to draw. So I'm sure they're making use of that as well as they can as well.
I mean, it might be even be like, it could be 60 or something like that. It could be really low. I'd be interested to know that actually, but 60 or 70. Yeah.
It also probably accentuates the feeling of how fast you're moving, because not as much passes. I'd have to really think about that math wise.
Often opening your FOV up makes you feel faster, but it depends on the scale of the world. Usually, that's another big variable. It's all a fine art of like how scale and size, because oftentimes like the scale of the environment is not anything like reality. Size of doors or whatever. It's like it's just it looks good because they've. But if you were to actually like one for one, and it's like that door is. Two times the size than it should be, but you don't notice because of all these tricks, right?
No, that's very true. I was thinking about that. Like, is it because does that also make him feel slow?
It probably does. It probably makes him a little more plodding.
Yeah,
But
which is not bad for their game. I mean, it definitely feels like, oh, I mean, I can't cover this ground very quickly. It feels like, right, and that's accentuated. So yeah, it works. It works.
So tell me about the tram.
Oh boy, the tram, man. I think I did it like 5 or 6 times. I was like, I should get past, because I don't think it's probably tons of distance further. I did think there was probably another boss fight coming, but I was like, but that'll probably be it. And I just can't get the guys fast enough between the turn rate on Leon, the aiming. I tried the rifle. I was using the
scope,
the Punisher with the scope, which I think was just not a good choice. The reload speed is so slow with the rifle.
Oh, yeah.
I tried it a couple times because I was like, well, no harm trying a couple times. But I think, there's a number of factors that I think really contribute to that. One is, like, draw distance is not great. And I think I honestly just can't see and hit them far enough away with the pistol. And they're just throwing a ton of, I don't know, sickles or whatever at me, and that of course stun locks you. And, you get 3 of those things. I was like, oh, well, now I'm almost dead. So you go and heal, and you come back, and it's like, and now 3 more are on their way, right? And it's just like, ugh.
I wonder if they're expecting you to shoot the things out of the air.
It's very hard to do because there's all these bars in the way and stuff, and I don't know. And of course, the guys are moving besides, right, through space, because both the tram and so it's just like, it's very complicated. It's basically like catching a baseball, but several of them are being thrown at you at once, right? And so and you have to throw them back at the pitcher, or to the pitcher as it happens, right? So it's like, it's like you're juggling and you're having to do this difficult thing of shooting them out of the air, because you have to shoot them. I mean, it's just like the balance of those. And then there's a guy every so often on the other side who's going to jump onto the top of the tram and start wailing on you.
I didn't have that happen.
Oh yeah, if the guys on the left, if you don't deal with them, they'll jump on the top of the car.
Oh.
And, I didn't even notice them the first time. So I'm like, well, I got to focus on them because I got to get that thing away because I'm not going to be able to turn back to it. And so I want to get that. And then there's a lot of guys on the right before there's another one. So like just a pipeline problem is like, okay, well, as soon as I can, I got to shoot that guy, which was nice to have the rifle for. I almost wonder if I should have use the rifle to shoot that guy from as far away as possible. And then immediately switch back to the pistol and start wailing on the guys on the right or something. I don't remember how I did it back in the day. I remember it being punishingly frustrating at the time. And it's to the point where I'm like, it wouldn't be such a bad idea to just play this on the PS4 at this point. That I think I've had enough GameCube experience with this particular title.
I'm pretty confident. Now I'm having a worries that I am playing on easy, and then I forgot that I chose that, but I don't think so. I think I'm playing on normal. Save. Okay, yeah, I'll look again. I think I'm almost positive that I'm normal then, but man,
I wouldn't say you're normal.
Okay,
but
yeah,
this particular game,
fair enough. Okay, but the remaster definitely did something to the tram section, because if I were to guess, I'm thinking maybe it's got to be I'm playing pretty high res, right? I'm playing on PC, so it's like I can see those guys quite a ways. And I'm wondering if they don't throw, because I don't remember the throwing things at me being, I maybe got hit once or twice. So maybe they're throwing them less often, or they're more inaccurate or less accurate when they throw or something, but I had no trouble. The first time,
I just
shot all of them.
Whack, whack, whack. I mean, I had her get killed a couple times by the same thing, because, you can't duck or anything, but they might miss you, which great, they missed me, and then they hit her who's standing right behind you. It's like, oh man, and so it's just like there's just been a number of frustrations, and then none of them are new. Like every time something like this would happen, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember that too. Yeah, that happened before. It just was like, it's the sort of thing where I'm like, now I have no, like, I mean, I'm ready to switch to another platform because I'm like, I have no patience with this anymore. It's like, I get it.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
it's, so I definitely feel like they've probably tuned that a little bit more for a more modern, decade on audience. I think the remakes, remasters, whatever came out, in the last 5 years.
Yeah, and as we suspected with the lake monster as well, which I think was heavily tuned or changed or something. Like those frustrating, as we talked about with wall missions in the past, like those frustrating sections are not really what makes the game shine anyway. So I feel like in a remaster, yeah, just make them, or like the QTEs, I think are also way more forgiving in the remaster than your version. So it's like none of that stuff was good. Like don't you're not missing out on anything. Just fix it and because the fundamentals of the game are good.
A really good section becomes really bad because you have to do it 12 times, and it's I mean, the lake monster is well enough tuned, that I did it maybe the second or third try, but this tram I definitely remember like a dozen times or more, back in the day. I mean, as soon as I got to it, I was like, oh no, like, I just had a moment of like dread immediately on walking up that staircase and going, oh no, not this.
Trauma.
There. Oh yeah, it was just, it was awful.
Well, the other, I think I mentioned it before, but the other version of the game that I played the most before, because I think could have even been the tram on the GameCube that actually had me put the game down originally.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised. But the Wii version is so good for this game, and I kind of kick myself for not playing that version this time. But it's such a weird version that I don't think it'd be appropriate. But because you use that Wiimote and you're literally just pointing the Wiimote at the screen.
Yeah,
it's just really good aiming, and that's when I probably got by the tram in that, because you're able to pinpoint accurate aim. So, but I can see this being frustrating. Luckily, you only have to do it on the way down, by the way. So on the way up, thankfully, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
so.
That's good. Yeah.
So if you switch platforms, are you going to have to start over?
No, I had played a bit on the PlayStation 4. I will have to do the lake monster again, but it's not that much, really. I mean, it actually goes a lot faster on the PS4, to be honest. Like stuff that took me an hour before took me half as much time, and of course I've seen everything along the way, so it's like I'll also just be mashing buttons past things. There's a lot of time that's taken up in presentation and stuff that you don't need to see again, skip all the cutscenes and whatever. So I don't think it'll be that bad. So would you like to go on to email? Maybe we'll take a quick break and come back for email. We haven't done a break between sections in a while. So
that's true.
So
I forgot all about that. Sounds good.
Welcome back from the break. We're in the part of the show where we like to do some feedback. We've been frequently saying, hey, throw us a review or whatever. And Day of the Dan did, which is very appropriate for our sort of Halloween season game here. Day of the Dan. But he says, I wish he just said brains, but he doesn't say that. He says, great show. Keep it up. And the text of the review is simply never stop stopping. Which I'm not sure if that's an exhortation for us to not do that. I'm not sure how that works, grammatically speaking. But I thought
can't stop,
funny.
Won't stop.
Yeah, I think it's
or as some say, can't, won't stop. That's
never stop, never stopping is the the lonely island or whatever. You know that thing?
No, I don't know.
That's a parody. They did that thing about a muffin, or I'm on a boat. Did you ever hear that a few years back?
The SNL thing?
Yeah, they were on SNL. I think it's Andy Samberg or Samberg, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
And they did a movie called Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stopping, where he plays a pop star.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. No.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's extremely funny, honestly. It's one of the There is some stuff that's not great in it, honestly, because of course comedy, but yeah, it's just mostly quite amusing. So anyway,
right. Nice.
Thank you, Dave the Dan, and for never stopping. And we'll never something over here.
I think we probably sounded like two old men when we just went through that. What we just went through is like never stopping must be like a thing.
It's
like
it's
a
probably a whole
thing.
thing. Yeah, it's a whole thing. And we don't.
They're
even,
like,
yeah,
look at these idiots. Yeah,
that's probably very true. That's probably very true. Let's instead now go to email rather than stopping. Let's go to email. And this was, of course, sent to devgameclub@gmail.com. I gave you the first one.
Yeah, we got a good old Mark Garcia here happening.
We have.
Okay, I love it. Hi, Mark. My issue with BioShock's endings. Mark Garcia. Greetings, Brett and Tim. I hope this mail finds you well, and I have been delighted as always by your assessment of one of my top 5 games of all time, BioShock. Just like Brett, I had played through this game from start to finish multiple times on the Xbox 360. Not only got a perfect 1000 gamer score for it, but also achieved a post-release brass balls achievement, which caused enemy health to reset to full should you die. Anyway, I digress. Listening to your most recent discussion about the moral path you chose and the ending that each of you got reminded me that there was a third way a player could choose to play, but it will ultimately result in the harvest ending. Should you decide to play through the game without dealing with a single Big Daddy, or should you all but one little sister? Should you all but one little sister and simply leave the last little sister and her respective Big Daddy alone, you will get the same ending that Tim got. Mm-hmm. Right. Yes. When I discovered this, it left me a bit disappointed. I understand that from a production perspective, creating a third ending would have meant more time, staff resources, and money. However, it still bums me out that the ending paths are so binary and that there isn't a middle-of-the-road option that may have made it feel like your overall choices had a bit more of an impact on the world and how the game resolves. Additionally, from the player's perspective, the ending implies that I was taking the more sinister path in my choices. In actuality, from my perspective, I could have simply decided that after saving my first little sister, that the one that the game forces you to save, I wanted no further part in dealing with them and their Big Daddies. Given that an additional ending would have been a strain on development time, could the game have not made it a bit clearer to the player that if they chose to do nothing about the little sisters, it would have resulted in them going down the harvester route? Best, Mark Garcia.
Yeah, Mark Garcia, of course, you'll hear this at the end, is the designer of our logo, as well as numerous amusing photoshops of us. You can catch those on Twitter.
And some T-shirts.
What was I going to say? I mean, I think that our argument would be all that needs to happen for evil to, be victorious is for good men to do nothing or something like that might be the argument there. But I agree, it should be signaled. I mean, it should tell you, like, you should deal with these things. I think it does it in a sort of soft way by showing you in the, in the pause screen and things like that, how many things are available. Like, I think it's subtly pushing you in that direction, but as we've said before, games are Hawaiian shirts, and, any subtlety is likely lost on players. Not that you're an unsubtle person, Mark. But it's more that, they're certainly not telling you, and you can certainly come up with your own reasons why that might be okay. Like, I think that's very reasonable. You're clearly doing harm to big daddies, who are not threatening you in any way, if you take them down. So I think there's an argument to be made there that there is a third path that is reasonable. And yeah, I think there's a production reality as well. So,
especially with a game about ideology, where this sort of, I'm not endorsing one way or the other, but there is a neutrality in ideology thing, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm just here in the middle here, like I'm staying out of this, like that's it is a choice, right? As you said, like there's a choice to be made there by not acting, and you can have all the opinions you want about it, but yeah, I think it's a fair point, and I think I had a similar reaction to Mark when I found out about that originally. And as a quick sort of like recent example that I'm playing right now in Dishonored 2, they have, I think their endings are, you have high chaos, low chaos, high order, low order. So they basically, I think, have 4 endings or something, but it's like, it's a scale, right? I assume there's a number at some point that you get over to achieve those, there's a value there, and there's no gray area between them. They just did the best they could to kind of accommodate your choices on the spectrums. So there's always going to be that problem. Unless you're playing like a super, super systemic game where the story itself is also systemic, which people are still trying to crack that nut. Nobody's really done it.
Well, so. I've heard some good things about Wildermyth in particular.
Oh, really? I don't know that.
Fairly recent game. Yeah, it's a small, very narrative. I think they chunk up the narrative in a good way, but there's tons of procedurality in the characters, and I think even in the sort of events and quests that you do. And yeah,
interesting.
Janine Hawkins actually streamed it on YouTube, so you could go back and watch her playthroughs.
Okay. Wildermyth? What's it called?
Wildermyth.
Oh,
Wildermyth.
All right. Cool. Go Janine. Wildermyth. Ooh, that looks interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I have one here from, thanks, Mark. I have one here from Walker Farrell. The subject is David Graeber. Hey, guys. I'm a couple weeks behind on the cast, but I was happy to hear Brett's recommendation of David Graeber in the reading section for BioShock. Graeber was a huge influence on a lot of people, including myself. I thought you and maybe your listeners too might also get a kick out of this short essay he wrote on the underrepresented ideas of play and fun in evolutionary science. And I have a link that I'll put on the show notes. It says, looking forward to Resident Evil. Well, here you are, Walker. All the best to my favorite podcasters. Cheers. Thanks so much. Yeah, I was pleased to see. I've read a number of Graeber's books now. He was involved in the Occupy movement as well. So he's an interesting person. And I think his book on debt, which would be not one I would recommend lightly just because it's very dense, is hugely interesting. However, like just the number of things that are in our cultural, the way we refer to things, and how it dates back to early barter and money keeping systems, like a stock, or a ticket stub. Those refer to two halves of the same object back in the day when there wasn't currency, because of how currency developed and why currency was used. It came from the upper classes, or basically from the king. So they would use sticks to keep track of debts. And you either got the short end of the stick, there's another phrase, which was known as the stub, like a stub from a ticket, or you had the stock, which is the thick side of the thing, which means the debt was owed to you.
Wow.
And it's just amazing that stuff is still, like, when I was reading things like that in this book, I was just like, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's insane.
Like how long because these sort of terms date back hundreds of years. And I don't know. It's a great book. Graeber is a really impressive thinker. Really sad that he died, I guess, a couple of years ago now. But was really, because of his death, I happened to catch his name and be like, oh, I should read, some of this guy, because of, people being interested in him. Anyway, so a re-recommendation of his book that I recommended on the cast. Let's go to the second email that you have.
All right. Subject is interface, personality, and pacing in Capcom's action horror classic. Zachary Cranover. Is these the same?
Not the same, Zachary.
Okay. I wasn't paying attention. Hi, Brett and Tim. Long time no write. Before I begin, I should preface by admitting to my biases. RE4 is probably my favorite game of all time. Wait, this is another Zachary whose favorite game of all time.
Another Zachary, his favorite game of all time is RE4.
Come on. Are you pulling my leg?
I'm not.
He says, in parentheses, even if Grim Fandango occasionally gives it a run for its money. I try to play it at least once a year, with each subsequent playthrough being every bit as enjoyable as the first. What's to account for this deep-seated love, though? To modern audiences, its control scheme may come across just as archaic as its writing does, trite and ineffective. Its writing does trite and ineffective, but it's the synthesis of RE4's disparate elements that make the game truly special. Although it was the first mainline entry into the Resident Evil franchise to adopt the over-shoulder camera, it didn't dispense with the series' long-standing tank controls. And while this interface may seem inadvisable for a game with such a heavy emphasis on action, RE4's AI is perfectly suited for it. The enemies are generally slow by the action game standards and in favor of melee combat, thus making the game's control schemes both responsive enough for the player to tackle their objectives and unresponsive enough for players to always feel vulnerable. It is both power fantasy and disempowerment fantasy. Add in a slew of schlocky dialogue that for the first time in the series actually feels self-aware. And the player is constantly reminded of the fun that was no doubt had in the game's production. Perhaps most importantly to RE4's success, however, is its pacing. See, I told you, it's no accident that Leon defaults to walking, whereas other action games generally expect a dead sprint to be the locomotive baseline. There's action aplenty to be sure, but there are also numerous moments of quiet sprinkled throughout the experience, moments of dread, anticipation. RE4's world is meant to be breathed in, even if it's often hyperventilated. Yeah. From the game's ominous, empty corridors to its frenzied and thoughtfully designed set pieces, RE4 is a roller coaster ride. It's a feast of many courses, each of them complimentary and delicious. Sorry for the long email, but I couldn't be more excited for you two to talk about this game at length. I hope you have even a fraction of the fun this game has afforded me over the last 16 years. Bingo, anyone? Cheers, Zachary Cranover. Bingo, anyone?
That's what he says when they go into the church in the town at the beginning.
Oh, really?
He says, like, what is it, bingo night or something? He says something.
Oh, right. Okay, right. That's funny.
He's like standing in the center where they've all walked and just kind of like, get his hands out to his eyes like, what, bingo?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I agree with him. I mean, and I haven't finished the game yet, but I think it is a very tight game in all of its sort of interconnectedness. And I think Zachary's mail is a really good summary of all of that. Yeah, I mean, let's see, I've already said before that because I played this particular section, the beginning, so many times that I already feel like from this section that it achieves all the goals that he's talking about. And I do love the tension. I mean, for me, I think I've said it maybe in the first episode, but for me, the one, which is a holdover from previous Resident Evil games, I know, but with the new camera and movement and stuff, it's a little bit better. But the one decision of you can't fire and move is the clincher for me. That's kind of what brings it all together for me. It's like you have to stop, and you have to make a really conscious decision to move and a conscious decision to fire. And I think that's just great stuff that works. Like he said, it works together well, because it all kind of, they've balanced it and tuned it toward that. And then, pacing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I totally agree. I think he's right too about the empowerment and disempowerment in equal measure, which is kind of, it's the same thing, right? It's the empowerment of the gun and the disempowerment of the run, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is kind of what's going on there. And I think that's all very well put. and appreciate the email, Zachary. For sure. We'll do one last one here just to make sure we're not getting too far behind. I mean, we're still doing BioShock ones. This one's just titled RE4 from Sam. And it's, you thought the last one was long, Zachary? Strap in. Hey, guys, Resident Evil 4 is one of my favorite games, so I had to write in and talk about it. And he's got a number of points, 5 points. 1, wobbly aiming. Games and movies have trained us to think a person can hold a weapon perfectly steady, but our breathing and heartbeat makes this nearly impossible. Your actual aim is going to move quite a bit, even if you are not anxious at all. For me, I see this in action every time I have to hold my phone steady to deposit a check. In this way, RE4 has gone for a dash of realism that most games avoid. Yeah, that's a good point. I think about trying to take pictures with my phone, and because it's not a great form factor for holding steady, you definitely feel that. The merchant does sell ammo. This is point 2, sort of. If you upgrade ammo capacity, you get a free reload's worth of ammo. It is worth leaving your guns empty, especially when ammo is scarce, like with the Magnum. That's an interesting, exploit.
That's some metagaming going on.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, if I upgrade this, with the guy, I can get a free reload.
That's what happens with games like this when people are so obsessed of their, like they find all the little things.
All the little things, yeah, for sure. 3, RE4 scare factor, but you also can see the merchant being like, I'll throw in some ammo for you. I really appreciate this series because the games are often tense, but not super scary. I'm able to complete most of them compared to Silent Hill, where I just can't do it. One thing I remember from my childhood is playing RE1. I mean, I tried to play Silent Hill 4, and I was like, oh my God, this is terrifying. One thing I remember from my childhood is playing RE1 on the PS1 when my brother said, don't be scared, be scary. That's why in RE4, I insist in kicking open every door. Push A again during the open animation. Yeah. Leon will kick it open instead of opening it carefully. Show those ganados who the real terror is. It's funny. I actually had made a note about it. I forgot about till I was reading this. About how that simple action, though, of just like an A and then a second tap, you get so much out of just like, I'm opening a door and I have the decision where I can open it fast or slow. And it's just, do I choose to hit the button again while I'm opening it? And that's a great tiny little mechanic that you don't really see. I can't think of other games that have done that. I'm sure there must have been who have ripped that off, but I think that's a thing that's like totally ripped that off. It's like a super simple thing of like, do you want to kick that door open or not? I think that's a brilliant micro decision that you get to make constantly in this game. Anyway, one thing that amazes me about RE4 is the effort they put into death. Excuse me. Goodness. Death animations. This video showcases them all along with the Benny Hill theme and is worth a watch. So I'll put that in the show notes. I haven't had a chance to watch yet. And 5, I like the RE series so much that I based my first quote-unquote full game on it. In 2019, I entered the 7-day roguelike game jam and created a roguelike based on the series. I had a lot of fun working on it, and I think it came out quite well. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you decide to give it a whirl. And he gives his itch.io link for it, and I will put that in. In case that's too much to ask, you can check out the trailer and get a few chuckles out of my pixel art. So I've got a couple of links there for those that'll be in the show notes. Thank you, Sam. I don't know if I'll keep making games, but I always appreciate the insights and experience you share, Sam. So cool. It's awesome that he did make a game, and I will check it out.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for all the emails. Those were great, and a lot of good points in there as well. Sam, I had literally noted this time the door thing, and I can't remember exactly where I did it, where I was like, oh yeah, I should make a note of this, because it's like literally every door you hit A and it can be slowly open that door, or hit it again and kick it open, and it's pretty great. It's pretty great.
Yeah, I feel like there's something recently that I was playing that did it, but yeah, it is a good simple thing and food for thought, let's just say.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. All right, cool. Like I said, those were sent to devgameclub@gmail.com. We love to get your emails and, of course, your reviews. Thanks again for Never Stop Stopping, Day of the Dan, and, of course, all of our emails. And we have a few more. We'll get to them as we get to them. Thanks for writing in. You can find us on the web at devgameclub.com or on Twitter at devgameclub. You can also find my co-host at
Tim Longo Jr. with the JR at the end.
You're taking a break from streaming this week, but you've still been streaming Control at twitch.tv/Tim Longo Jr. Yeah, how's that going?
Going well. Yep, I am on my way to the Ashtray Maze.
Okay, so you met Dylan.
I met Dylan. We've had lots of talks. Dylan is not with us anymore. I went to the the whole thing where you go back to the recreated town.
That's amazing.
Ordinary. The fact that the town is called Ordinary. And then the fact that they brought the dump in its full form, to the oldest house is just like, where do they come up with this stuff? It's like really, really good. Yeah, so I'm still enjoying it. I still hate the map and the navigation of the world. I get confused constantly. So
I do too. Yeah, I did too all the way through it. So sorry, I can't tell you that's going to get better. I was always, even places I've been through a billion times, I would walk through and be like, why is it? Oh.
Yeah. It's very samey looking. I mean, it's a good looking game, but it's there's not a lot of landmarks and stuff. So it's somehow, but anyway, I'm still enjoying it. I still haven't gotten the shield, so I need to figure out where that is. But yeah, and I never finished the refrigerator boss. So
you can always go back to it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to that when I have more power. It's still throwing stuff in the environment. It's still fun, and Dylan.
Remarkably simple but remarkably effective to just like pick pieces of the environment and throw it at things. Great.
They did a good job with that.
Feels really good. It feels like the axe in the modern God of War, where it's like, they just found the feel for this thing really well. So anyway, our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast Aaron Evers, and our logo, as already mentioned, is by Mark Garcia. Have fun deploying the El Gigantes this week, and good night.
Good night.